Hi, and welcome back. In this video, I start the tutorial with making the cover, the hinge, and the base pages. There is a walkthrough video in the playlist, as well as an introduction which talks about tools and supplies. So look for that if you have any questions. All right, let's make the cover. So to make the cover, we're going to take one sheet of 5 inches by 11, and I am using 65-pound cardstock, and then 2 sheets that are 8.5 by 11. I'm going to take my 1/4 inch score tape and add it down the length of this 5-inch piece, just right on the edge. I'm just finger burnishing it to start, but I will grab my bone folder and burnish it a little bit better. Alrighty, I'm going to peel off the backing of the score tape. Whoopsie. And I like using a surface that has lines on it because it helps me keep things straight. So I'm going to put this right above that main line, trying to get the bottom and the top. And then I'll take one of the 8.5 by 11. So if you're using 12 by 12 paper, that's fine. You just will have to adjust and you will get different size scraps than I do. But again, that's fine. You can use whatever works for you. And I'll go ahead and burnish that real well. And then add this second piece. So what I do is I put it right 1/4 inch over the main line. And I just use one of the inch things. And then this paper I will put, oh, I didn't use the center line, but that's okay. I will put right at this other line. You know what? So I can't see it. Now, if this is not perfectly straight, this part of the process, that is okay. There are other parts of the process that is important to get perfectly straight. This isn't one of them. So this is not the part that I would stress out on. All right, so what you've got is a piece that is 23 3/4, somewhere around there, inches long. And we're going to wrap the album cover. So I've already taken my chipboard, which is 2.5 by 8.5, and added the score tape to it. Take this opportunity to burnish it one more time, although I know I already have. I know I have a pokey tool somewhere, but in the meantime, my pin will work. All right, so I'll remove the backing. Okay, so now for this, you can use a T-square. You could use, I don't know. I mean, a T-square is probably the smartest thing, but I'm just going to eyeball it. I'm going to try to have it parallel to this one line, which may or may not be straight. And to be honest, it looks like it's not perfectly straight. But again, this is not the part that we need to stress over. There will be other parts, believe me. I'm taking my 1/4 inch score tape and I'm going to put it on both sides of the chipboard, trying to go right against the chipboard and up to the top of the paper. It may not end up right next to the chipboard. Sometimes the score tape sort of has a little bend to it just because it's round. I don't know. Just because of how it's on the roll. So I'll put one on one side, one on the other. I just push it up till it's against the chipboard. I didn't mean to do that. And then I will take and burnish this score tape. Now this is your best time that you can burnish it, because it's going to have other things on top of it. And then at the same time, I will peel off the backing of that score tape. All right, so we've got a 1/4 inch score tape on both sides of our spine piece chipboard. All right, now I will grab the other pieces of chipboard. So these again are 8 by 8.5. I've already put on my double-sided adhesive. If you don't want to put your double-sided adhesive on, or if you don't have this score tape sheets, you could use whatever you have. If you want to use glue, that's fine. Just make sure you get some good coverage. I'm going to peel this off. Just make sure you get good coverage when you put it down. All right, so I'm going to peel off the one. And then what I'm going to do is, so this is 8.5 inch tall. My score tape is 1/4 inch. I'm going to cover about 1/4 of that score tape. So 3/4 of it will still show. What's the measurement? 3/16. And again, I'm eyeballing it. I mean, it's important to get it straight. This is where you want to make sure it's straight. I don't use a spacer. I don't know, don't do anything else funky, but I just eyeball it. All right, we'll peel this off and do the same with the other side. So this 1/4 inch double-sided adhesive, this score tape, is going to come into play a little bit later. And it's wonderful. All right, I'm going to take my bone folder and burnish. Oops. Then I'm going to take my bone folder and find the edge of the chipboard and push this right up against the edge of the chipboard. I'm making room in front of me. This is where I can see that it's not perfectly straight. My chipboard, probably the spine, was not put perfectly straight on the cardstock. But am I worried about it? I am not. Sometimes it's going to want to stick because we've got that score tape next to the spine, but that's not going to bother me. All right, now I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut. And of course, what I want to do is stay about 1/8 inch away from the corner of the chipboard. If you have to make a line, you can make a line. So you know, don't go any closer than that. And I'm just going to cut straight across. I would rather keep it further away than cut it too close. So if you are nervous, stay further away, 3/16 inch. You don't want to be 1/4 inch away from it. That's pretty far. If for some reason you do find that you get too close, you can just take one of these corners and glue it on. I mean, if you're using black, you could take a Sharpie and color it, but it's okay. All right, now I'm going to take it and use the surface and just fold it. Just to get a bend to it. Okay, so now Some people will take score tape and put it across your chipboard and at the top of your paper. Some people will put it here or put it here. Sometimes, if I'm doing a smaller album, I honestly don't bother with the score tape and just use the glue. This is a little bit bigger album, so I am going to use a little bit of score tape. I'm just going to put it on the chipboard. I know once it's there on the chipboard, it's not going to go anywhere. It really isn't, I promise you. So I'm going to put it on the top and the bottom, and then I'll turn it over or sideways, and then do it on the sides. And yes, I do rip my score tape. I know there are tools that you can get to make it a nice and neat cut. You could use your scissors, and if that's how you want to roll, that is perfectly fine. You know, the crazy thing is, I give the instructions, and people might follow instructions exactly, and for some reason, everybody's album comes out different. And that's part of the art of it. I used to teach painting. I taught decorative painting for years. And when I taught painting, we would all have the exact same pattern, the exact same colors. I would give the exact same instructions. And it was always amazing to me how everybody's personality would come out in their paintings. I love that about the process. And it's the same with making mini albums. You all add your own special touches, and that's what makes it art. All right, I'm peeling off the backing of all of the score tape around the perimeter. All right, now I will add glue, and I am using the Designer Dries Clear Glue from the Art Glitter Company. The other one said Art Institute Glitter. I keep calling it the Art Glitter Institute. All right, I'm going to go right next to my chipboard. I'm going to skip over where that 1/4 inch score tape is in between the spine and the hinge. I'm just going to do that, and then I'm going to go up, go around the top part, and then I'm going to zigzag towards the top part. Don't need a lot. You know, this art glitter glue has some good adhesion, and you don't need much. So now I'm going to take my bone folder. It's got a slight bevel to it, but it doesn't matter. Use whatever bone folder you have. And push the side at a right angle right up against the chipboard. You'll see that glue seep out. And then I'm going to start at the center where the spine is and burnish it. So we're burnishing at the very top edge of that chipboard, and that's going to help it start to want to fold over. And then I'm going to start in the center and burnish it so it stays there. I'm using my fingers as well as the bone folder to adhere the cardstock on top of the chipboard. Now, if you get any glue on your bone folder, clean it off just so it doesn't get all over the place. And here I'm gonna go up there. All right, now I'll do this other long side. Before I put the glue down, I am gonna burnish this, make sure it'll go right up next to the chipboard. Add a bead of glue. Go around the outside and zigzag. Do you guys enjoy making covers? I do. I find it very relaxing. You know, after you've done several hundred, you know, it becomes easier. All right, again, I'm going to burnish, and then I'll pull it down and have it stick. So there's a little bubble here. And what I'm going to do to work that bubble is work it towards, because I'm close to where the section, the gusset is between the spine and the cover. So if there's a little bit of a bubble right there, that's okay. Alrighty. So there is that. Okay, now I'm going to take my bone folder, and where there's a little triangular section that overlaps the piece below it, I'm just going to push it down and try to go in. So push it down, and now I'm going to go up. I'll take my glue, go down next to the chipboard, around the perimeter, zigzag, and then let's glue this down. This will be easy because it's a small piece and we don't have the spine piece to deal with. Okay, love it. Same thing here. We'll take our little bone folder and push it in that little triangle. Push it down. And burnish it next to that chipboard. And there we go. All right, now the final thing I like to do is stand it on its end and take my bone folder and go along the edge just to give it more of a flat edge. I doubt anybody notices that but me. It makes me feel good. Now you can see that this was a little wonky, but not too much, and it's okay because we're going to cover it. So let us take the bone folder. So this bone folder has a rounded corner. It's got a point that's not a sharp point, but still it could dig into the cardstock if I let it. So I try not to get the point of it in. I'm just using this round part. And what I'm going to do is, well, first I'll turn it over, and I'm going to just gently go back and forth several times and finding that gap between the spine and the cover. Just a couple times. Doesn't have to be heavy. Can you see it? My lighting's funky today. All right, and then I'm going to go from this side and push down at the top and bottom. I'm just going to go back and forth several times to gently train the paper to make that little indentation. I'll do it for this one too. So now what I'm going to do is, holding the edge of the cover in one hand, I'm going to lift it a little bit and try to get this piece to meet with the double-sided adhesive in the center there. I'll do the same with this. And just to let you know, I pushed a little too hard and this tore a little bit. It's okay because it's going to be on the inside, but it does happen. I'm not that concerned because nobody's going to see it. So when you lift it up, you're going to see that will cover, and you'll have a nice gap in between so you're not going to get cracking. I've also used pattern paper on covers with this method, and because there's enough of a gap between here, you're not going to get the cracking. So that is fine and good, and we're going to use the rest of this to help adhere when we put down the hinge. So let us go ahead and work on the hinge. Okay, for the hinge, you'll need a piece of cardstock that's 11 inches by 7 5/16. Why that weird measurement? Because our pages are going to be 8 inches and I want it just a little bit smaller than 8. You could actually do it 7 and 7/8 if you wanted to. I just like it a smidgen smaller than the pages. The other thing is there's going to be 6 signatures with 3/8 of an inch gusset between. The hinge on each of the signatures are going to be a 1/2 an inch. So it's going to be 1/2, 1/2, 3/8, 1/2, 1/2, 3/8. So if you're ready, we'll get started. I am going to start at 1 1/4. And oh, by the way, make sure the whole time you're doing your hinge, you're against the side at the very least and up at the top. Sometimes I find I need to trim paper, especially more inexpensive paper, to make sure it's square. So if you're against the side and you see a gap at the top, your paper is not square. All right, anyhow, let's start again. 1 1/4, 1 3/4, 2 1/4, 2 5/8, 3 1/8, 3 5/8, 4, 4 1/2, 5. Keep making sure you're straight on the top and the side. 5 3/8, 5 7/8, 6 3/8, 6 3/4, 7 1/4, 7 3/4, 8 1/8, 8 5/8, 9, whoops, 9 1/8. Oh, almost got myself there. No harm, no foul. All right, and just so you know, I use this old Cricut stylus. You could use a stylus with a metal tip. You can use your bone folder. You could use whatever came with your scoreboard, whatever you use. All right, now remove my scoreboard. So we've got the indented side facing up. I'm going to turn it over. So we have the bumpy side facing up. So again, we have hinge, hinge, gusset, hinge, hinge, gusset. So I'm going to fold in between each of those 2 1/2 inch pieces. So I'm going to skip this one score line and go to the second and fold it up. And I'm going to make sure my edges are parallel or exactly even with the edges of the rest of the paper. So I eyeball it first, make sure it's even, and then I'll take a bone folder and just score at that score line. Now I'm going to skip 2 score lines, and at the third one I'm going to fold again in between those 2 1/2 inch pieces, making sure it is straight. So this is not to stress you out, but the hinge is, all right, skip, skip, fold. The hinge is where you need to make sure you get it as straight and lined up as possible. Remember I said don't stress about making sure the cover's on straight? Skip, skip, fold. So my advice, if you have not done mini albums or have not done several, is to practice. Maybe here, practice on 2 different ones, and whichever one comes out the best. Skip, skip, fold. Because, you know, everything is contingent on your hinge being straight. All right, skip, skip, fold one more time. That being said, you know, even if your hinge is off a little and your pages go in a little wonky, and by a little, I mean you're off by 1/8 of an inch, maybe even 1/4 of an inch. I promise you, by the time you finish your book, nobody's going to notice. All right, now you can see, maybe not in my camera because the light isn't great, but there are 5 calm, quiet little valleys indented up. We are going to turn those valleys into mountains. And the way we're going to do that is my thumbs are down here, my 4 fingers are up at the top. I'm going to pull this, the paper furthest away from me towards me, and that area I just scored, that that last one is going to create a mountain. So I'm going to let it, and then I'm going to push it together and get those to the bottom score lines of the hinge. We're going to get those to meet, and I'm going to just finger burnish it. Now then I'll fold it down towards me, fold it away from me just with my fingers. I'm not going to stress out using my bone folder. I'll do the same with the next one. I'll finger burnish it, fold it at the base of the hinge. We'll do it to the next one. So this little gusset tried to creep up on me. I had to put it in its place and tell it, you stay down. All right, let's do that again. And 2 more times. Sorry, you stay down there so we can show everybody what we're doing. All right, so we've got the paper fairly well trained, but yet we still don't have glue and we haven't burnished, so we're going to do that now. So what we want to do is keep the gussets on the surface. Make sure we get the hinges facing up. So I'm going to pull this all towards me, a little bit at a time. And now we have our hinges all where they need to be. I'm going to pull them towards me. And I sort of glance at it to make sure nothing's out of place, that it looks all parallel, that it's nice and neat and pretty. I'm going to hold the center, take my bone folder, and gently burnish. Go to the middle, and then switch my arms and burnish again. I'm going to turn the hinges all away from me and do the same thing. So the gussets are flat on your surface, and it looks a little wonky. This one is not as even as I would like it to be. Oh, because the gusset was not flat on the surface. Why is that not looking straight? So let's take a look. Turn it over. Oh, this one. Let's try it again. Let's burnish it. So if it, and I could edit this part out of the video, but sometimes seeing what you do, seeing what an instructor does when things don't go right is the most important part of a video. So I, again, did not like how it looked. To me, this looks a little wonky. This one looks like it's not completely parallel. I'm going to pull it towards me and see why. Okay, it looks good there. Fold this up, fold this up, fold this up. I'm being more cautious to make sure everything folds, especially this one. So I just wasn't folding this one up as much as it needs to be. And I also wonder if this bloop score line that I did threw me off. Okay, there we go. Okay, so again, we don't have any glue in here, but we'll rectify that now. You turn it over and you look at this beautiful, beautiful parallelness. I don't know. All right, now I'm going to hold this, and it doesn't matter if you're right-handed or left-handed, use whatever is comfortable, but I'm holding it in my left hand. With my right hand, I'm going to put the glue. I'm not going to start right at the edge. I'm going to start about 1/4 of an inch away. I'm going to zigzag it all the way up, and then take a line and go closest to what is now the top. It eventually will be the bottom. So zigzag. All right. And then go across. And then I'm going to turn this upside down. I'm going to pinch this together. Trying to get to the bottom. I'm not using my nails. I mean, I have short fingernails, but I don't want to scratch the paper, but I am trying to get to the bottom. And there we go with the first hinge. So that is nicely together. I'm going to try to go in a little closer and do it one more time. Okay, so I will zigzag. I'm not getting the most even zigzags because this is an awkward position. Whoops. go close to the top. I guess I'm about 1/8 of an inch away. And then I'm going to push this together. It's better if I do it on the surface. Push that together and just finger burnish. Okay, I'm going to do the rest. Zigzag. And then unroll, turn it upside down. I got glue in my fingers, have to wipe it off. And then if you're in an area where it's not dry and not too hot, you can do several at a time with the glue. I don't do them all usually, but I could do 3. All right, so now that I've got them down, here, let's look at the bottom. Doesn't that look pretty? Now I'll take it and now I'll use my bone folder. So I'll push them all away from me and burnish. Pull them all towards me and burnish. Alrighty. I like it. Okay, so now we're going to take this and put it in the book. All right, let's put the hinge in the book. So what we're going to do is add glue to the hinge and then place it down. Before I do the final gluing, I'm just going to eyeball it and just sort of see where it's going to go. It's going to be even side to side, so it's going to be even on the spine chipboard piece, of course. So there will be about 1/4 of an inch between the beginning of this hinge and the center of, I guess we call it the gusset caused by the 2 chipboard pieces. And then I want to go down a little bit closer to the bottom than the top because we'll have some top loading pages. And I don't like my things to stick out of books like crazy. I don't mind if they'll stick out a little bit. That's just a personal thing for me. But so I'm going to go about 1/8 of an inch from the bottom. So from the bottom of the hinge to the bottom of the book, it'll be about 1/8 of an inch and closer to 1/2 an inch on the top. Now you could center it all the way around, top and bottom, side to side, and that would be fine too. So just eyeball it and figure out where you're going to put it. I'm going to take my glue, I'm holding the hinge loosely in my left hand, and I'm just going to add glue to the channels at the bottom of each hinge. Not a lot, not a lot. Again, this art glitter glue does hold very well. I probably add more glue, and now we'll zigzag in between the channels of all of the hinges. Probably use more glue at the hinge part of the book than any other part. Plus, if you have more, it helps you move it around. But I don't want so much that it'll seep out, so I try not to put any. I sort of do my cutoff line at about 1/4 of an inch. So I'm just going to do that. I need a little bit there. I'm not going to put it on the wings of this hinge. Number one, it'll get my fingers messy. So I'm going to flip it upside down. I already know where it's going to go. So I place it down, making sure that this hinge is parallel to that channel and the same on the other side. It actually is over a little bit too much. There we go. All right, now what I'm going to do is, so there's an even number of hinges, so there's an odd number of gussets, so I'm going to start in the center. I'm going to take my finger, you could use a bone folder, but I'm going to go from the top of this gusset down to the center and from the bottom up to the top. That way, if you go all the way down, you'll get some glue coming out. Now I'm going to go over one hinge to the right and take this hinge and move it over. and this whole hinge system will move slightly, and do the same. Now the thing is, you'll want to do it fairly quickly because you don't want the glue to dry. So I'll go over to the right hinge, then one on the left, then one on the right, then one on the left. Now the final one on the right, and the final one on the left. And then I'll turn the hinges all one direction, grab my bone folder, and burnish. If you see any glue seeping out, which you shouldn't, but if you do, just clean it up. I'll move all of these babies over towards the left and burnish it again. Okay, oopsie. Now I'll go in between the channels. I'm going to use the blunt edge and just go close to the sides of it. And just burnish. Now I still don't have glue after these first and last hinges. So actually these wings are quite fluid. They still move. And that's okay. So I'm going to turn this up. And I'm going to now put glue down on the chipboard and on the cardstock underneath this wing. Also, I'm going to put it on the cardstock where the cardstock's doubled up, just a little bit. Again, not all the way to the edge. And then right next to where that channel is. I'm not going to put it in the channel. I mean, if someone gets in, it's no big deal. But next to it. And then I'll go on my wing piece and go around the perimeter and just add some on there lightly. So now I will burnish right next to the hinge, and then I'm going to take my bone folder and burnish in this crevice. I'll go back and forth several times, just trying to push down a little bit each time. If you have glue seeping out, I see a little bit on the top. It's not much. Just go back and forth several times. I might touch the double-sided adhesive in the center there, but not, of course, not on the ends because we've got the cardstock. And then I'll burnish this onto the back cover of the book. Now I'm going to let that dry for a little bit while I work on the other side. It's not perfect yet. I'll take this wing and flip it up. There might be some glue here that's holding it down. Just gently pull it up. Add glue right next to that. Zigzag a little bit on that chipboard. Go in this crevice on the cardstock. And then a little zigzag on the chipboard, the front cover. And then I'll go around the perimeter. And a light zigzag. I mean, you could do swirls, you could do circles, you could do whatever you want. All right, now I'm going to burnish right next to that first hinge. And then I will go back and forth in this crevice several times. It's going to be easier where there's no cardstock, a little more difficult where this cardstock is, but that's okay, we'll get it. And then I'll push that down and burnish. All right, now I'm going to go back over to the back. And I'm going to work this crevice just a little bit more, going back and forth several times, maybe 20 by the time I'm done. Now I'm going to take the cover and lift it as I go back and forth to try to meet the cardstock from our hinge to the double-sided adhesive that we put down when we first put down our cover, when we first made our cover. And then back and forth there, and good. Now, if at this point when you lift it up, you'll notice there might be some bubbling right here on the book. That's fine, that's normal. I just burnish it real well. I'll let it dry, and then before I start putting in the pages, I'll burnish it one more time just to make sure that that stays in. All right, I'll work on this side now. Back and forth, back and forth. Lift up the cover. Make sure that the cardstock meets with that double-sided adhesive, and then we're good. So now I'm going to make sure my hinges are all facing up, and I'm going to let this dry flat. I'm not going to try to close the book until this is all dried. If this lifts right now, just add a little, go back and add a little bit more glue, but you should be pretty good. So that is it. I'm so excited. Now we'll go ahead and do the base pages, and then we'll address this again before we put the base pages in. All right, we're going to do the base pages. I'm going to do one set of each, but you'll need 3 sets of each. We're going to have 6 pages, and they're going to be 8 inches tall by 7.5 wide. So 7.5 by 8 by the time they're done. 3 are going to be top loading, 3 are going to be side loading, so you can put photo mats in those pages. So you will need 3 pieces that are 8 by 8.5. You will need 3 pieces that are 7.5 by 8, and you will need 6 pieces that are 7.5 by 8.5. So we'll do the top loading pages first. So I'm just going to do 1 set, but of course you'll do 3 sets of this one. So with the 8 by 8.5 inch piece, you're going to basically score on 1 short side, 1 long side. So here I've got the 8 inch side at the top. I'm going to score at half an inch. I'm sorry, at 7.5. It is the same as me saying score at half an inch. Then I'm going to take this part with the score line and put it at the top of the scoreboard, and with the 8.5 inch side at the top, score at 8. We'll miter this. So just going across the score line, I'll make a diagonal cut where the X is, and then cut at the top. And here, we're not really at a 45-degree angle, a little smaller than that. And then I'm just going to use my scoreboard as a surface, well, after I fold and burnish on my score lines. And something that I'm doing, which may be different for some of you, is that I'm going to have the tabs visible on the outside of the paper. All right, with the pieces that are 7.5 by 8, I'm going to put it inside those tabs, and I use my scoreboard to help me line everything up. Then I'll open this tab. I'll add glue to it. So I'm zigzagging all the way down. You don't need a heck of a lot of glue. And then I'll fold this over and use my bone folder and burnish. And then I'll turn this just to make it easy for me. So why do I have the tabs on the outside? Because when you are putting things into the hidden pockets, that way things won't get stuck on the inner workings of the pockets. If it bothers you and it's not how you want to do it, that's fine. You could put the tabs on the inside. I mean, ultimately, it's not that big of a deal. Okay, so do 3 sets of that. And then also you will have 6 pages that are 7.5 by 8.5 with the 8.5 side at the top. You will score at 8 for both of those pages. And then I'm going to do a twofer. I'm going to miter those corners. It's easy on this side because the scissors will stay right in that little gusset caused by the score line, and then easy to just cut. All right, fold and burnish on our score lines. And then here I'm going to take the tab on the right facing up, the tab on the left facing down. I'll put this inside that tab. Use my scoreboard to line everything up. There we go. I'll open this tab, add glue, and take my bone folder and burnish. Now I'll turn it over and add glue. And burnish. And again, the tabs are on the outside of the paper. You could do it the other way if you want. Okay, let's grab our book and put the pages in. All right, so I've grabbed my pages and I put them in order. So I have side loading, then top loading, side loading, top loading, side loading, and top loading. I'm going to start, the top loading will be at the back, so I'm turning it upside down to do the top loading first. I'll put that aside. Okay, here's the book. Now if you move this down so there's a smaller gap at the bottom, make sure you have top and bottom correct. So mine is correct. Sometimes I will just put an arrow so I remember. All right, and now I'm going to go ahead and burnish one more time because this glue should be dry. I say one more time. I'm going to do it a couple of times because it's fun and it actually helps the pages move. And then I'm going to one more time work on this gap and make sure that's down, and then move the book so you know, just make sure it opens and closes real well, which it should now because that's all dry and it looks beautiful. Okay, I'm going to put my pages here. So top loading, and it's top loading because you've got the two seams, one on depending on right or left, and it doesn't matter if you have the seams in the back or seams in the front. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So let's dry fit it. So this is going to go, this is easy because it's going to go, let's say our hinge is facing straight up. Oops. This will go on our hinge. Then it's not going to go all the way to the bottom. We're going to back off a little bit and come up just maybe 1/4 of an inch. The bottom is going to be resting on the bottom of the hinge, and there's a little bit left on the top, but it's not going to be on the bottom of the hinge. When it's straight up and down, this left-hand side of the paper is not going to be against that gusset. It's going to be backed off a little bit. And then when we put it down, we're going to make sure that there is an even line on the bottom of the book and on the side. Okay. All right, so now that we know that, and I start at the back of the book, just habit, don't know why I do that. I'll zigzag my glue at the top half of this hinge. I don't need to put it all the way down to the bottom. The glue will distribute as we move the page. And when we burnish, it'll distribute. So I have the glue on both sides of the hinge at the top. I'll put this on, and then I'll fold it down and I'll back off. So I'm moving it a little bit to the right, making sure I'm straight. And then I'll finger burnish it. And then I will grab my bone folder and burnish it. It's just clicking a little bit. I don't know if you hear it because the glue is dried and it just needs to distribute. Okay, now this should be easy to slide in the next page, which is a side loading pocket, and it's more of a tube. It should go in pretty easily. So dry fit it first and make sure. Now if it doesn't, you can just take scissors and just snip off a part. So I'll start about 1/8 of an inch from the top corner of my hinge and go about halfway down and just snip off a little smidgen of paper. I didn't need to because mine went down, but if yours doesn't, no big deal. All right, we'll again add glue to the top portion. And the front and the back. And slide this on and down, then pull it a little bit to the right, make sure it's even with our first page. I'll finger burnish it, and then I'll take my bone folder, and there we go. Love it. Okay, another top loading one. So you guys get it. So add glue. And add the page. So let's go ahead and put all in the book. And again, I started from the back with top loading and then did side loading, top loading, side loading. If for some reason you get them out of order, that's okay. It really is. Nobody will know that this was the way the instructor intended it to be. Nobody else knows me. So just get them in. All right, there is our book with our pages in it. I'm going to add paper to the front here. I don't always, but I've decided in this case, just because of what we're going to do to this page next. So the cover of the book is 8 by 8.5. So I will add a 7 7/8 by 8 3/8 piece of cardstock just to cover all the workings of the book. You could do it in the back too. I'm just going to do it for the front because I forget what I'm going to do in the back at this point. So I'm going to do that, and we are done putting the book together. The next video will be how to do the inside front cover. Then I'll go through the book and do the pages. Then I will do the inside back cover, and then I will do the front spine and back of the book. Then I'll do the hidden pocket pages that go in our base pages. So that is it. So go take a break and then get ready, and we'll work on more of the book.